And it's because elected Greens make a real difference that more and more people are joining us, more and more people are voting for us. We now have a record number of councillors on a record number of councils, with group status on 22 out of 40, and potential power-broking positions on several. And in Oxford, where we have 8 city councillors and 5 county councillors, I'm delighted to be able to tell you that Green councillor Elise Benjamin is poised to become Deputy Mayor of Oxford. But of course, Oxford isn't the only place where great things are happening. Just to pick somewhere completely at random, somewhere, top of my mind, let's say Brighton Pavilion. Now there, not only did Keith Taylor win an amazing 22% of the vote at the last general election, not only did the Greens achieve 27% of the vote at the last European elections, not only did we get 30% of the vote in the last local elections, putting us ahead of all the other parties and doubling our number of councillors to 12, but in a fiercely fought by-election in Regency Ward in November, the Greens retained the seat, with Jason Kitcat winning an incredible 41% of the vote. And that's why we have every expectation of winning Brighton Pavilion, our first seat in Westminster, at the next general election. But friends, it's essential that we seize the opportunity to get Green MPs elected as soon as possible. Never has an opposition with radical vision, political courage and practical policies been more urgently needed. Never has the muddy middle ground of the grey party's policies been less up to the job. In an unseemly scrabble for the safety of the centre ground, Tories and Lib Dems are utterly failing in their responsibility to provide effective opposition and genuine alternatives to a government which is becoming ever more illiberal and out of touch. A government intent on taking away our hard-won civil liberties in the name of security. A government failing to learn the lessons of the catastrophe in Iraq and still believing it's possible to win a war on terror through the barrel of a gun. A government wedded to the apparent technical fix of nuclear power, leaving a costly and deadly legacy for generations to come. A government which says climate change is the greatest threat that we face, and yet which has shown itself to be utterly incapable of exercising the political leadership that we need to save us from the worst of it. And so our message is this: enough of this yawning gulf between rhetoric and reality, enough of this drifting duplicity at the heart of government, enough of this politics without purpose. While the 3 grey parties are stuck in a 20th century all growth is good time warp and continue to genuflect to the free market, worrying more about international competitiveness than about planetary survival, we have something different to offer. We have something better to offer. And it's not just about the radical vision, the practical policies, the green solutions. It's about the positive hope. And believe me, looking at the latest predictions from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we're going to need an awful lot of hope. Because unfortunately, there's little sign that any government in the world has grasped the scale of the climate challenge that we face. And under our own government, greenhouse gas emissions have actually risen, not fallen, since they came to office. Indeed, we have a government so blinded by the role of the market that it's committed to an emissions trading system which will simply allow companies to buy themselves out of any requirements to reduce emissions. Yet we know we have a proposal based on individual carbon quotas, guaranteed to bring our carbon emissions down and lift our poorest people up. A government with such a frightening lack of ambition that its civil servants spend all their time proposing new statistical interpretations of renewable energy targets, rather than new ways of actually trying to achieve them. Well, we know that Britain has the greatest potential for renewable energy in Europe, and our policy would release that potential. A government which is committed to a massive expansion of Heathrow Airport. Yet we know that any government which on the one hand recommends a massive growth in airport capacity, on the other says it wants a significant reduction in carbon emissions, is guilty of either the most breathtaking hypocrisy or the most unforgivable stupidity, and public opinion is with us on that. A government which looks likely to commit a massive act of climate vandalism by giving the go-ahead to a new coal-fired power station in Britain, the first for almost 30 years in Kingsnorth in Kent. Yet we know that around 30% of energy in the UK could be saved through energy efficiency measures alone, which would also save more money than they cost to implement, and our policies would deliver them. A government committed to mandatory biofuel targets, yet we know it's an obscenity to prioritise food to feed our cars over food to feed the hundreds of thousands of people who still go to bed hungry every single night. And so in conclusion, friends, clearly one of the benefits of living in a democracy is that people can always hope for something different, they can hope for something better, and they can vote for it too. The grey politicians are out of their depth. With every botched privatisation, with every economic panic attack, with every illiberal crackdown, every environmental disaster, it becomes ever clearer. They are incapable of coping with a world of consequences. They can't do any better, and deep down, they don't think that better is possible. Well, we do, and we believe this country does too. We believe that people are ready for better. Exactly 5 years ago today, up to 2 million people marched in London to say no to the war in Iraq. That march was the birth of a movement which continues to grow today and which shows that people's appetite for better remains undimmed. And what we have to do as a party is to prepare ourselves to deliver it, to become more organised, more focused, and more professional. And we're already starting to do that. And that's why I believe we have every reason to believe and to hope that people are ready to elect Green MPs. And that hope and that belief are based on thousands of hours of canvassing, of poring over election statistics, of enormously hard work all around the country. But the fact that we know that we're on course for our first MPs doesn't make that hope any less exciting or any less visceral. It just makes it more contagious. Friends, our first Green MPs won't just be representatives of and cheerleaders for local communities. They'll signal nothing less than a complete sea change in British politics. And together, we can make that happen.